Hey everyone. Before we start with the episode, I wanted to give a big shout out to a PayPal supporter that we had this month. Coach Doug Dorio, assistant men's basketball coach at Penn State Shenango, was very gracious and donated to our PayPal this month, and I can't say how appreciative I am for his support. If you want to support the show, you can do so at PayPal and find our username at bballteacherpod. Any donation is a huge help for our hosting fees for our audio or as a way to show support for the show. So, again, really appreciate it, Coach Dorio, for supporting the show. And with that, we're on to the episode.
Welcome to another edition of the Basketball Teacher Podcast. Our mission is to bring you discussions on a wide array of topics in the coaching world to grow players on and off the court. You can connect with us on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter, and also reach us directly through email at basketballteacherpodcast@gmail.com. Now, here's your host, Coach Mike Hernandez.
Welcome back, everyone. Thank you guys so much for joining us here for another episode. As always, wherever in the world you're listening to us from, whatever platform you're listening to us on, thank you guys so much for all of the support, all the kind messages, all of the emails and things that you've sent to me, that you've sent to the show. I love hearing all of your ideas and the things that you guys got going on or girls got going on, and the type of conversations that you want to hear, so I can make sure that I bring those to you. And a common theme and a common thread, and those of you who've listened for any length of time know, a common one is talking about culture and talking about really building a program up the right way. I love getting into that side of thing with you guys and bring on guests who love talking about, in this case, we're going to talk about building a family culture. And we'll talk about building that camaraderie, the things that you can kind of do on the court once you brought it together. Talk about ways where that culture may be tested a little bit and some of the challenges that go in when you're trying to build a culture and how you kind of navigate through those, as well as kind of bringing in the parents and the community and really making it a whole like neighborhood type feel. So we're going to jump right into it here with this topic of building a family culture. I'm very happy to be joined today by the head boys basketball coach out at McDonough High School. Very happy to be joined out from Georgia, Coach Donald Watkins Jr. Coach, again, really happy to have you on here today. How you doing?
I'm good. Thank you again for having me. Again, my name is Donald Watkins Jr. My first year as head coach over at McDonough High School here in Georgia.
Coach, let's go ahead and start with your basketball journey, your coaching journey. Let's talk about where's this game of basketball taking you? Where's this coaching journey taking you? And ultimately, how did you end up at McDonough?
Yeah, so around 2021, I decided I wanted a career change. After playing college basketball, I did 2 years in the insurance industry, and I just knew that wasn't my purpose. And so I attended a job fair. It was virtual during that time because of COVID. And with that job fair, I landed a job at Newton High School in Covington, Georgia. Didn't even know if I was going to be part of a basketball staff, but I got the job as a teacher. Reached out to the head basketball coach, and it just so happened he had a spot for the ninth grade boys basketball team. So I coached there my first year, 10-0, first year as a ninth grade coach. And so my second year at Newton, which would have been 22-23. I moved up strictly with just the varsity staff, and we did pretty well there. And after my second year at Newton, there was a coaching change at Newton. And so I left Newton to come to McDonough High School last year, or 2023. And I was an assistant on staff. We did well, Sweet 16. And the head coach at McDonough decided to make a job change as well. So I interviewed for the job, and in my fourth year of being a coach, I was a head basketball coach at McDonough. So.
Awesome. I want to ask you, Coach, about what was that transition like to move from the assistant to the head coach? Did you find you were able to make that transition pretty seamlessly? Was there any sort of difficulty along the way? What is it like kind of moving one chair over, so to speak?
Um, it wasn't that difficult for me. I've been very ambitious since I was young, so I looked forward to it. Um, the experience as a head ninth grade coach, it helped me a lot. And then
Mm-hmm.
also as an assistant, I was doing a lot of the scouting, which I'm sure a lot of head coaches know you do a lot of that as well as a head coach. So That was the easy part for me. And then just the what we're talking about today, the culture. I've had a lot of great coaches from youth to high school to college to the coaches I've worked under that I've just been able to learn a lot from. And so, all of that was just imposed on me and I used what I learned.
No, that yeah, that's great. And I love that from hearing from your journey. It's really cool that you've had like these different experiences and different, coaching stops where you've worked with these different grades. So you kind of can like see like the whole picture. You kind of know what it's like to be a coach and from all these different perspectives. So you have like all of these different experiences and things you can kind of draw from, which is really cool, especially because, sometimes I know for me as somebody at the varsity level has been doing it for a bit, sometimes I can forget what those ninth grade teams can be like, but you still have that experience you can draw from, which is really cool.
Exactly, exactly.
Coach, I know we're going to talk a lot about culture here, but talk to us about what you like to do, X's and O's wise, excuse me. What is it that you are particularly passionate about, and along with that, kind of what is your process of putting in your offense and your defense? What's that look like as well?
Yeah, so X's and O's, I think I mentioned, as an assistant, I assisted a lot with scouting and scouting reports. So I watch a lot of film. My assistants watch a lot of film, and in addition to obviously creating our own game plan, I always look for what our opposition's weaknesses are, to expose those weaknesses. But when it comes to our own preparation, I do a lot of repetition in practice, going over our plays, making sure that, from player one to player 15, guys know how to play different positions of the court based off of where they may be in the game. If, somebody gets in foul trouble or somebody subs out and you're used to playing the one, you might have to get used to playing the two or the three or, fours and fives having to be interchangeable. So, um, then also I rely a lot on my assistants. I'm a young head coach, so I did not put the whole load on just myself. I
Mhm.
allowed my assistants to have a voice and really assist me in having a successful season.
So would you say that you're at least on the offensive side, is it a lot more kind of like a positionless where guys are, able to not necessarily be on one spot of the court, but they're going to be, potentially at all different areas of the court, potentially doing multiple different things depending on what the situation is?
Exactly. We have a number of fluid or continuous offenses that we run. And so guys are, very rarely in the same spot for an extended period of time. And then, I mean, we do have our set plays as well when we're in a certain situation and we need a certain shot. We want to get the guys the best shot in the right position where they're most successful on the court. We switch it up when we have to.
Was what you were putting in, was it a big change or departure from what they had been running previously? Because I know that obviously you've been with the program for a bit, or was this something that was kind of an easy or kind of a seamless transition to get into what you wanted to do?
It was a lot of changing into what I wanted to do
Mm.
now as a new head coach. There were obviously a couple of plays that I knew the guys that were returners could remember, but there were a lot of changes that we made, that I felt best fit the team with the newcomers we had as well.
That's good, and that's really cool as we kind of transition talking about the culture piece. That your guys, it sounded like they kind of bought into it right away. It was they were familiar with you and they knew you, but it seems like they were ready to kind of jump right in and play in the system that you put in.
Exactly. Yeah. I actually, started building a culture without knowing it from being an assistant on staff the year before. I'm sure, as you know, a lot of times players they build a closer bond sometimes with the assistants. Like it's a lot more conversational with assistants than with the head coach, and so that made it easy, especially with I had seven seniors this year, so we were close last year. I had them in class sometimes. When they, had a bad game, I could talk to them a lot about, things they could improve on or not harping on certain, little errors that may have happened. And so with me being able to do that as an assistant, it helped them to trust me a lot, when I became the head coach. They even vouched for me when it was time for me to become the head coach.
No, that's awesome. You talk about that immediate buy-in. That's great. Um, so as we kind of shift to talking specifically about this building of like a family culture, I wanted to ask you, Coach, about what went into you creating kind of that camaraderie and that family culture. What was kind of your steps as you took in the head coaching job to kind of put in this family culture for the program?
So I will have to give a lot of credit to my college coach, my first college coach, Boomer Roberts, who was my coach at Trinity International University, up in Deerfield, Illinois. He was huge on family culture. We, went on outings together. We did team retreat to start the year off. He tapped into, just talking to us about our personal life rather than just basketball all the time. So he was a big reason for how I ran my program this year in my first season as head coach. So I opened the year before the season started. After trials were done, we had a team retreat. We went off to a house for a day, and we played a lot of team bonding games together. We watched a movie that was about making sure the steps to have success as a team. And then I set aside player meetings throughout the year to talk to players individually, talk to guys as a group, just making sure that communication was open. And then outside of the basketball, we throughout the year we go on team outings together, even some that are just at the school, like going to support our other sports programs throughout the school year. So it's always good to support others because that helps pack the stands at our games too, because those same student athletes and coaches come support us as well.
Yeah. You had it sounded like kind of like a veteran group, a more experienced group that this past year. Did you find that you had to do a lot to kind of bring them together? This seems kind of like it was already a tight-knit group, or were there things that you still wanted to make sure that, you did to make sure that they were, as close as you wanted them to be?
Yeah, so a lot of my guys, they've been going to school together since some of them since elementary school. So a lot of them have been close, have been friends. But I had some freshmen that came in and got some time on varsity. Had guys who had never played varsity basketball before this year. So there was still work to be done. But because of that senior veteran group, the the purpose and the standard that I set, it wasn't just my voice. The seniors really bought in, and so that kind of translated throughout the rest of the varsity team and really throughout the program as a whole.
And I think that's like a really good point that you mentioned, and I imagine this was probably something that was really helpful to you is to make sure that your older guys, your veteran guys, your seniors were really on board because when you get them on board and they're bought into the vision and what you're trying to do, they're the ones that can do a lot of the, real set the tone for everybody else if they're bought in. And it sounds like that was something that was really impactful to you is to make sure that those incoming seniors were right along with you and supported you 100%.
Exactly, and I think I mentioned before I had 7 seniors this year, and honestly, out of those 7, only 2 of them got reasonable minutes as juniors. So for to get the other 5, ready to be able to play and contribute on the court, as well as be bought in to just the program and the vision as a whole, and for them to do that, it was huge for us this year.
No, that's really cool too, because I mean, not only are they needing to kind of set the tone culture wise, but then they're getting ready to play a lot of these more like meaningful minutes. So I mean that's awesome that they were able to buy in and then also work on their game at the same time. You mentioned coach about how you did like kind of these outings that you did with your players. You even mentioned how some of them were in the school. Kind of like what were the kind of the expectations or what kind of things were y'all doing at those outings specifically to kind of like bring the team together? Were there any like activities and stuff that y'all were doing?
So, specific for our team, we just went and supported a lot of other programs, teams that maybe not so much had as many fans that showed up. We went in and supported our softball team a lot. We went and supported our volleyball team. It's spring season now, so we went to a couple baseball games, soccer games, and we just try to bring the energy that I try to have our bench create during our own basketball games. We wanted to have that culture for everybody. So the other teams really enjoyed it, and again, that helped our home games be a little bit more lively too. It is, I would say, it's kind of hard sometimes to do a lot of outings off campus sometimes, especially when, you got guys who are depending on parents to get them certain places or maybe the players. So a lot of our stuff happened on campus, but I do know, especially being on the college level, it is fun when you can go do stuff off campus like bowling or going to watch a movie together. So I do plan on incorporating a little more going into next season.
But I think that, that still shows, right? Like how much you could still do even within like your own school. And I think like one of the things that it sounds like you're doing, which I think is really cool that like a lot of programs could consider doing is kind of building the athletic culture in general at the school, and you kind of use like your basketball program to support and build up the culture of athletics in general, because you're right, some of these sports maybe don't get a lot of fanfare, they don't get a lot of attention. So I think that doing something like that kind of just brings a lot of pride to just the athletic culture at McDonough, and that I think just helps every program at the school.
Exactly. I completely agree. And I have a amazing athletic director who is all about culture. His coined phrase is Warhawk Pride. That's our mascot. And so we make sure to highlight Warhawk Pride wherever we go, rocking our school colors and showing pride wherever we can support.
Oh, that's awesome. I love that. Um, when you got your guys and they're bought in and kind of believe in your culture, what are sort of the things that you're kind of able to do with your guys when you know that they're playing for each other and that they're bought in and that they're working hard? So how are you able to kind of say, okay, we got this culture where we need to be. I know that now we can do X, Y, and Z on the court.
Yeah, so again, part of the building culture for me was building the trust. And again, I was a
Hmm.
first year head coach. It's easy for players to say, "Dang, why are we going to why are we going to follow this guy? He hasn't done it before." But when you tap into learning them as individuals and learning them outside of basketball, asking about their families and as a coach, picking guys up, taking them home, the talk that happened off the court, all of those things contribute to what a family culture brings. And then, you go as a teacher in the school and you walk by and the guys are sitting together at the lunch table. There's not, multiple cliques within the team. It's one solid combined team. That's what really makes programs thrive.
Without, you don't need to get into specifics, but you talked about, and I completely agree about that importance of that individual relationship. As you got to know your guys, were there things that really stood out to you or surprised you about what was going on in your player's life that maybe you wouldn't have known if you hadn't had those conversations with them?
I would not say surprised. I've been this is my fourth year in coaching, and I was a player my whole life. So I've had multiple teammates from multiple backgrounds, and I know the reality is that although we're creating a family culture within our program, the cultures that they come to and leave us from to go home to every day may not be the perfect picture every day.
Hmm.
And our picture of our program is not picture it's not perfect. Everybody has something that's specific for them. So um, kind of repeat your question for me. I lost myself.
Oh, I was gonna say if there were any like surprises that you had as you got to know your
Oh,
guys more, anything that like you maybe weren't expecting or kind of caught you off guard.
what I will say is that as I got to know my players more, guys that appeared, shy or they look a certain way when they're on the court or when you see them in school, and once they really get to know you, the shy people they open up. So it was a pleasure to see. It was great to get to know them aspects that they don't show anybody, and that again just comes from the trust. They're not going to show everybody everything, especially if they don't trust you. So that was big.
It's funny. I don't know why this kind of made me think of it, but I have a a player now who you see her on the court and she's like really loud, really talkative, very communicative on both ends of the floor, like very like I don't say emotional, but she's definitely like she's very vocal and she's very out there and visible. But what's funny is then if you see her in class, she is like the most quiet girl, completely like respectful. She's like to herself. She's very like unassuming, but it's just funny how you can see these different sides of them. Whereas like if you only knew her in one way, you would never expect her to be in the other. And I always find it funny how, basketball or sports in general can kind of bring out these sides of players and people that
Mhm.
like you might never know existed.
Exactly. And I think it's good for us as coaches to pull that and see that from our players. A lot of people outside of the program, they only see what goes on during the 32 minutes of a basketball game. And it's easy to judge a player because of a reaction they had, because of a call, or because something didn't go their way in the game. But what they don't know is who exactly that student athlete is on the inside. So it's a special thing as a coach to understand our players like that.
I wanted to kind of follow up and talk a little bit about I was asking about some things on the court, and one of the things I was curious about is when you have a group who is really a family and they trust you and they trust each other. Are there things you can even like do in a practice that like, okay, I got this tight-knit group of guys, so I can run practice a certain way or do certain things because I know that these guys are, really going to push each other and, are looking out for each other. What do your kind of practices look like, coach? How do those look like? And how do you kind of use like the fact that they're kind of a family to kind of make your practices better?
Yeah, so again, how we, as I mentioned a moment ago, that no family is perfect.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, we have our days that are up, days that are down, but we compete every single day. And as you know, and I'm sure you've seen with some of your players that may have been competitors, when two competitors are going at each other, some days there are days where it can it can get loud and it can get there could be disagreements. And so we embrace that because a high school season is a long season, and there'll be ups and downs during the season. So if we attack those in practice and push guys to their limits, when we're faced with those obstacles in the season, it makes it a lot easier. And the guys with going through those practices, it they're able to get through that when it's in the game and it's a few minutes left and it's you're down by a couple points or it's a close game. It really all starts in practice. So
So if you have guys who are, like as you kind of said, like they're going at it, they're being, competitive with one another, is that like, I know every situation is a little bit differently, but is there like, you just sort of like let that kind of resolve itself if there are times where you feel like you gotta, I don't know if intervene's the right word, or do you find that these things kind of like can work themselves out because they're able to figure out whatever their competitiveness is, if they're getting in each other's face, they're able to kind of solve it without it getting into anything worse than that?
yeah, so again, I believe with building a good family culture, if the culture is built, then usually those things can resolve their self because at the end of the day they can know, hey, this is just basketball practice. I know you as a brother outside of basketball practice, and so usually they are resolved by themselves. There may be times where a coach has to blow the as a coach you got to blow the whistle to settle it down or redirect practice in a certain aspect. But for the most part, those situations can be resolved on their own, especially if you've built a strong culture.
But it does sound like one of the aspects of your practice coach. It does sound like they're competitive and your players are going at each other. Am I correct in thinking that?
Oh yes, once you're inside those four lines, there's no walking around. Try to keep guys locked in and focused for the time being until there's a break. You go grab water, you can talk about what you need to then when you get back to those four lines, it's time to lock back in and get back to it again.
Because with that, the culture that you want to build, like, and the amount of work that your guys need to do in practice, right? Your practices, it sounds like, are pretty intense and they're pretty go, 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 kind of a nonstop thing. To push guys to that limit, though, they got to have a lot of trust. And it sounds like when you build that trust with your players and they really bought into you, you can really create some practices that are really pushing your guys and really trying to get the most out of them.
Yeah, so definitely with building that trust within me, and then two, also with having 15 guys, really mixing the teams up, not always having the first group go against the second group or the third group, but sometimes mixing those first group guys in with the second and third group. So it adds another level of competitiveness within each group. So that was helpful for me this year as well.
It's always fun to see how like those guys are when when you kind of mix them up a little bit and try to, put guys in different positions or have them be with people that they're not normally with. It's really cool to kind of see like who the really good teammates are and who the really good leaders are. I love sometimes I've had instances where I've had some varsity girls who've like worked with some of even the JV or the freshman girls and the way that they're able to kind of pick them up and kind of put them in the right spot or give them advice. It's like, man, like I'm so glad I did this because I got to see this side of them kind of bring these other girls up and it's really cool when you're able to kind of put them in those situations where they got to lead like that.
Yeah, definitely. And then you also start seeing things like outside of practice, guys who may have been working in practice one day together, you then start seeing them come to the gym to get on the shooting machine or get a lift in together. Like that was huge.
Isn't that so fun when you see those people? It's like, wait a minute, y'all would have like never talked to each other. You never said a word to each other at the beginning of the season. Now all of a sudden they're like best friends and they're inseparable.
Exactly. Exactly. Exactly.
It's like, um, you just mentioned, and I know we talked about it before we went off air, and I want to make sure I ask you this because I want to know how you did this, coach. You had 15 players, and when you're building a family and you got 15 players on your team, there's only so much playing time to go around, only five players on the court at once. So how did you keep those guys who maybe didn't see as much playing time? What kind of went into making sure that they were still bought in, they were part of the family culture, and that they were still, locked in and focused and working hard for the team?
So I'm not gonna lie, it was tough. Um, But throughout the season, I made sure, in situations and games where I could get all 15 guys, I did. I wasn't a coach who, kept the starting five on the court and tried to run the score up on every team we played. Like, I know all of my guys brought what they needed in practice. So when it was time to reward those guys in the games, I definitely did. And then outside of that, just highlighting accomplishments outside of basketball. So we just recently had our season end banquet. And so we had, multiple awards where I highlighted, the guy who had the highest academic achievements on the award on the team. I highlighted the guy, our mascot was a Warhawk. So I highlighted the guy who had the most Warhawk pride this season, which, making sure everybody was built up on the bench and in the game, keeping the energy flowing. So just highlighting things that may not necessarily be seen through playing time, but understanding that everybody had a piece and a part to the success that we had this year.
And when you were, constructing your roster and you were, doing the making your final group of your 15, did you need to have conversations with those players at the end and kind of talk to them about what their role was going to be and everything? Because I know I always have to do that, and I got to be like really clear of some of my end of the bench players, what their role is, and make sure that they're like still bought in and they're okay with that role. Did you have to have those conversations yourself?
Yeah, definitely. I had again with 15 players by the end of the season. I was only going 7 or 8 deep into the rotation, and so those conversations were had, shortly after tryouts, and it was a pretty clear understanding. Obviously, even after you let the player know, it can still be hard for a 14 to 17-year-old as the season is nearly 30 games. What you said back in November,
Hmm.
it may not still resonate the same once late February gets here. So it was tough.
Yeah, yeah. I think that brings up though something that um, I think is really important with relationships and with culture building is, and I've talked about this with other guests as well, and I'd be curious about how this went for you, but the idea that you try to get to know your guys and build those relationships, and you really hit it in the preseason or the off season, but how important it is to make sure that you keep those conversations going, you maintain those relationships, and that you continuously check in with your guys or your girls throughout the year because, like you said, something that they might, agree with and be all right with in November might look a little bit different in February. So, were you constantly kind of checking in with your guys, or how did that process go to kind of maintain those relationships that you had with your players individually throughout the year?
Yeah, so again, we had individual meetings, not necessarily anything that was particularly scheduled. That is something that I would like to get to a level as next year, where there's, weekly meetings with either myself or one of my assistants. But we talk as a team. Before practice started, there were long conversations that were had after practice, long conversations were had. Um, we implemented this I guess it was something that we repeated every single day, after every practice, after every game, something called put-ups. And this was another thing that I got from my college coach, Boomer Roberts. And basically, it's where the head coach selects three guys at the end of practice, and those three guys have to look the other man in his eye and tell him something that he did good that day,
Oh, I like
regardless
that.
of yeah, regardless of if um, they were mad at each other in practice. They got to look them in the eye and tell them, "Hey, you did this well today." And so we did that after every single practice and game. And so that was another thing that really just helped the guys trust each other, because even when they were feeling down on themselves and they probably didn't think they did anything well, somebody had looked them in the eye and said, "Hey, this is what you did today."
So what kind of things were they saying? What kind of things did you see come up that guys like were appreciating or noticing about each other?
Yeah, so things like next play mentality, after a shot was missed or a defensive assignment was missed, hey, the next play, you made this play. Or hey, I appreciate it. When I was doing bad, you lifted my head up, or you went all the way through this drill without, jogging or stopping.
Hmm.
Things like that. Because you have players that are all different types of athletic levels, and a lot of people throughout the season they reach their athletic peak. They don't start that way, and so it's a pleasure to see the work that's put in, and the support that you have within your team to help guys reach their full potential.
One of the things that is really cool about that um, is a lot of our players and a lot of teenagers in general may not really get a lot of compliments. They may not hear like a lot of positive or good things like said about them. They might from some, and I hope that they do, but I know, at least from my experience, how some of my players they don't necessarily get that at home, or they're not in environments where they get told they do things well, or get positive words told to them. So to have somebody say it to them and have it be somebody that they really care about and that they like that could be really powerful and could be really transformative.
Especially when it's man to man or boy
Hmm.
to boy. A lot of guys, for whatever reason, we feel like we can't compliment another guy. And so it does mean a lot when you have your brother there, and they're noticing the things that you're doing well.
Yeah, no, it's funny. It's funny. It's always a little awkward. I feel like at first, it's always like, and then it's funny though. Once they start to do it, like it just comes out, and then it's not an issue anymore. And then all of a sudden they're praising all this stuff, and it's really cool. It's a real cool breakthrough for sure.
Yep.
Um, Kind of touched on this a little bit, Coach, but you might have some other examples as well. But when as maybe the brotherhood or the family environment of your team and the culture, when has that ever been like tested? What sort of challenges do you think a coach should be ready for when they're trying to really build a family culture?
Yeah, so I we realized it really soon. We were tested early. So prior to me being the head coach this year, behind the winningest coach at the school of all time, BJ Thomas, who he had been in two Final Fours. We won our first region championship in his last year at McDonough, and so following behind that, there's a lot of high expectations. And so the first game of the season, we won. It was a tight, close game. But then the second game of the season, we played a team that we beat by 20 my first year as an assistant there, and this year we lost by 28. And so
Mm.
everybody's looking around like, are we going to be good this year? Like that was only the second game of the season. And so obviously that, the next practice after that, leading into the next game, we had to refocus again, because that can put a lot of doubt, not just in the player's mind, but as a coach, you're questioning yourself, like, we just blew this team out last year. Why did we get blown out this year? And so we were tested very early, but again, because of the bond, because of the trust, we were able to get over that hump and get back on track very quickly.
Uh, w- when you went through that, was there like any, you kind of mentioned this, was there like a conversation that you really had with your guys, or was it just sort of like, hey, like, this is what it is. We gotta, do X, Y, and Z in practice, pick things up or do things differently. How did you kind of approach that conversation with your guys after that happened?
Yeah, so there were conversations that were had immediately after in the locker room, and then I mentioned I'm a scout guy, so going into practice the next day, we broke down film, we broke down different situations that we could have implemented, not just players, but coaches as well, to prevent ourselves from getting into a hole like that. So coaching is all about adapting and adaptation. So we were very quickly able to make some adjustments going forward into our next game after that.
I think something that you brought up though is something that's really important. And I'm glad that you kind of talked about this is when you're building like this culture and you're really building this culture of trust and family and accountability, how important it is to have that same culture within your coaching staff. And I can tell just by the answers that you've given to a few questions that it seems like you and your coaching staff really do have these, reflective conversations. You're talking to one another about what's going well, what needs to be worked on, and it sounds like those are really productive and really helpful for your program.
Oh, definitely. There have been some late night conversations on the phone, early mornings, staying away after practice, just talking through things. As the head coach, I was the youngest coach on my staff, and so that was on purpose. I wanted to have a lot of wisdom within my program, and so they were very instrumental in ensuring that we kept going in the right direction as well.
Coach, if you want to know something that I literally just found out like a minute ago, this is gonna blow your mind. Are you ready?
What's
Uh,
up?
Episode 103. I literally have an episode. It says having a family atmosphere with Coach BJ Thomas. You mentioned that name and I knew that name. Isn't that something?
Yeah, yeah, that is something.
That is. So, those of you listening, you go check out both of those two. And I just looked it up and I was like, yep, you even put the McDonough High School. I was like, oh, I know that name. So
I've
there you
got to
go.
listen to that as soon as we get off.
So there you go. It's right there. That is so cool. I don't think I've ever had that happen before. So there you
Wow.
go. How about that? That is awesome. Very, very cool. But yeah, you talk about like the accountability that you have with your staff. I love, like, I think you mentioned about how you kind of have even those conversations that you have after practice. Because I know for me, I need to be held accountable. I need people to make sure that I got my head on right. Sometimes my mind is going 15, 20 different directions, and to have
Yeah.
those coaches who are like on your staff who are going to hold you accountable, but then also who are fully respected by the players, and they're going to be bought into anything that any coach on your staff says. Man, that's huge.
Yes. And just speaking of the coaches and the trust that we put into the players, after midway through the season and after the season, I had my assistant coaches, they were just telling me, like, Coach, you got to trust yourself more. Like, I've relied on them a lot. I asked them a lot throughout the season, with this being my first season. They was like, hey, sometimes as a head coach, you just got to trust your gut. And so to have assistants that also trusted me, like, it was a program full of trust.
Yeah, it's no, that's true, because sometimes when you're new, right? You don't know what you don't know, and you want to make sure that you're, doing right by your players, doing right by your guys. You have the culture the way you want it to be, and you know, sometimes you can second guess yourself or doubt yourself, and I think that means you care. But no, I love that. Like, hey, you got the kind of like that idea of, you got this job for a reason. So, like, trust what got you here, and as long as I think you're doing right by players and you mean well, it's hard to make too many bad decisions, I feel.
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
How do you think then, maybe a coach? I'm just kind of curious now as I kind of think about this, coach. If you were in a situation, or if you knew somebody maybe who was going into a situation where there was maybe like a lot of, conflict, or maybe there was some drama, or maybe there just hasn't really been a lot of like good culture and there's been a lot of maybe gossiping and stuff like that. What do you think a coach should maybe aim to do to really try and, right the ship and make sure that that stuff is kind of eliminated from the program?
Again, have open dialogue, open conversation. Basketball doesn't just revolve around practice and games. So I mean, sometimes you gotta have a family discussion. Hey, what's the issue? What caused it? What can be done to resolve it? And that happens throughout the year. Like you have to have those talks. Because there are people that don't want to see you successful, and there's people outside the program that may put something in somebody's ear in the program to stir things up. And so
Mm.
you got to have that open dialogue so that that trust remains within the group.
Yeah, that's a good point. You don't know the stuff that, is going to be said outside of your program. You can't control the stuff that other people might say or other people might bring up, and that, in my experience, has always been something that I've been very mindful of, the fact that, a lot of players are going to hear stuff from people in the community or from their friends about this, that, or whatever. And you really do need to have that culture of trust because, man, I've had it before where after a loss, all of a sudden there's people out there who are, have all these sort of opinions about the team and the program and everything
Oh
that's
yeah.
going on. But when you have players who can block all that out or know that it's not important, that is huge because, man, there's a lot of there's a lot of people in our players' ears, isn't there?
Yes, I literally, and the biggest thing that our kids deal with today is something I didn't even deal with much as a player, was is social media. It is
Uh-huh.
so they see stuff and that it drives their mind. I thankfully, and I didn't even ask of this, but I had players literally that deactivated some of their social media accounts during the season to stay focused, and that just shows the level of commitment that these young men have at again 14 to 17 years old. It's hard to get a
Hmm.
teenager from being on social media, but they had that much commitment to the program that they stayed away from some of those things.
And so what is it just stuff that they're seeing of like about the program? Is it stuff where they see like highlights of all this other stuff and they're like comparing themselves to it? What sort of stuff do you think was really distracting, or just social media stuff in general that teenagers have?
Just social media in general, but then again, I mean, we have a lot of high level players in the program, and so a lot of times those players they do compare themselves, or why
Hmm.
am I not getting these offers that this player is getting, or why is this player ranked and I'm not? Like it's a lot that can go into the mental health. It's tough.
It's something that, older coaches and really any coach, but those who maybe didn't have that social media exposure, I think are sometimes unaware of, is it's like no age that came before it, where our players have all of this access to seeing like these highlights and seeing these mixtapes and seeing all of these different players, and it's really easy to, I think, get caught up in comparison or, worrying about like, oh, I saw this on social media, and, is this person better than me or not? And it's like, that sort of stuff is stuff that we might find like kind of silly, or like, why are you comparing yourself to all these other players, like focus on you, but like that's what they do. And
Yeah.
if you're unaware of that, then you might have a player get in their own head because they saw some like highly edited, curated mixtape that, they think this other player is like this great, the best player ever, and they're like, oh, I can't compete with them. And it could be
Yeah.
somebody all the way across the country, and it's like, wait, what are you doing? Like, we're trying to get ready for a game tomorrow, but this is stuff that, our players, are doing and can get caught up in. And it's really cool. I mean, that speaks a lot to the maturity of your players, coach, that they have the mindfulness to even deactivate their social media, knowing how much of a distraction it would be. That's really cool.
Yeah, I know it's rare. You don't see that much. But another thing I also did at times when I did see moments of doubt or
Hmm.
worry start to come into some of my players' mind. It's like it all kind of hit right around Christmas break about certain things. I actually over the break brought in a mental health counselor. She's actually one of the parents of one of my players, and she did a session that was amazing. Just talking to the whole team about mental health. And so that was a good reset right in the middle of the season. I would suggest that to any coach. If you have a counselor, every school has school counselors, hopefully. It would be great to have sessions like that throughout the year just to make sure that your players have clear minds.
Yeah, there's a lot that they're going through. There's a lot on their mind, and in general, all players have a lot going on. But I was thinking, for me, this past year, and some of the seniors I had, and you said you had seven, and so at that point in their life, and they're focusing on basketball, they're still in school, but now they're at this crossroads about ready to graduate too. There's probably a lot of decisions and a lot of things that they're thinking about after high school, and I'm sure there's a lot that your group that you had on their mind and really thinking about with their future.
Definitely. And the state of college basketball does not make it any easier. Players
No.
wondering, am I going to play college basketball? Or if I am, do I have to play JUCO first or do I have to play prep first? Am I going to get any NIL money? Like it's so much that is a part of the basketball world that has been a major shift or change just in the last 5 years.
Oh, I can't even imagine for guys like you talked about, high level players who are looking to play at the college level, but they're trying to figure out where their fit is. But then, of course, right, the college coaches are working through all of the college athletes who are in the portal. So now that's kind of delaying all of the maybe some of the high schoolers themselves. And man, that's such a difficult period, I feel, for anybody to go through of uncertainty, let alone the 16, 17, 18-year-olds going through it. So now they have that
Exactly.
mental health in mind, right? Because that players need to have people that they feel they can talk to or things that they can work through with that.
Exactly. Exactly.
Coach, what do you do to kind of bring in the family members or people in the community? How do you kind of create this community at McDonough that kind of goes beyond just the basketball team and incorporates other people as well?
Yeah, so I made sure that we implemented community service throughout the year. So before the season started, we went and volunteered at a local baseball league called the Sunshine League here in McDonough, Georgia. And it's a group of special needs kids that have a league right across the street at the baseball field from our school. And so we went out on a Saturday and just had fun with the kids, ran the bases with them. It was amazing. And all the boys, they enjoyed it. The members of the league, they enjoyed it. Um, in December, we hosted a family Christmas dinner. And so that included our boys and girls basketball program. We invited all of the families out. We fed them good. We made sure every player got a gift. So little things like that, the intangibles are things that you can get the family involvement. We worked on having the first established booster club this year, and so having families come in to assist with the concession stand and with whatever we needed to help this program be successful. It wasn't just the coaches; like a lot of the parents were the reason for the success this year as well.
Was there uh, a- any difficulties or any sort of issues you had with, establishing those connections with your parents? Or was it like, okay, hey, you already know me because I was the assistant before, I'm the head person now, like you can trust me, with your son or with your player, like we're good? Or were there any like conversations that you had to have with the parents at all to kind of gain their trust?
Um, So a lot of parents did know me, but I did start the year out with a parent meeting. I had a meeting initially when I first got the job, a community meeting for anybody who was in the McDonough area who kind of wanted to come hear my vision and what my goals were for the program. So that was back in May of 24 when I first got the job, and then before the season, had another meeting just specific to the parents of the program. I allowed them to ask me any questions they had. I opened a group chat, made sure I got all their contact information, and so have a group chat where I relay all pertinent information to the parents. Try to, it helps us out as coaches when we don't have to, repeat the same thing 35 times because we have one uniform group chat. So I try to make sure I was had open dialogue with all my parents.
And that's could be I know for some coaches hearing it, that could be a little bit scary to have be that accessible to parents. But I think that it kind of comes down to the way that you approach it. And if you really establish that, positivity and the fact that you're there, for that player's development, you care about them as people and you want what's best for them, then hopefully the parents are bought in and they know, hey, this is a coach who, cares about my player, not just as a basketball player, but as a person as well. And you can have those, open lines of communication with parents and you don't have to be worried about it, getting argumentative or them coming at you all frustrated. Like they already have that positive connection with you because they already know who you are, they know what you're about, and you've already made it clear that like you care about them more than just as a basketball player.
Exactly. And the trust from the parents has been so high that the gym has almost became the player's home away from home. Like I've literally had parents call me, "Hey, is so and so at the gym with you?" "Yeah, they're here with me." "Okay, good. Just making sure they're with you."
Yeah,
So
they're taken care of. Okay, I know they're in a good place, right? Like they
yeah.
have like a safe spot like that to go. That's cool. Um, and how cool is that too to get that booster club going? I know that that's such a big exciting thing for a lot of programs when they get that going. So I imagine that, to be able to do that and do some fundraising, get things going, that just kind of builds another level of kind of buy-in, excitement and culture building, knowing that, there is that sort of different level of support coming in for your program too.
Oh yeah, definitely. I know you've heard the phrase, "If you look well, you play well." So my booster club was very instrumental in making sure that we did fundraising going into the community. We had multiple local businesses that donated to our program this year, and so we were able to go into this year with brand new Under Armour home and away jerseys. Varsity had, brand new sweats, two sweatsuits. So we were able to do a lot because of the work that our booster club put in to ensure that their children had the best experience as the McDonald War Office here.
But also something cool to hear about is how willing and how gracious the community was, and the fact that by reaching out and going out in the community, how many people in the McDonough community were willing to give back. And I think it's so cool and I to hear all these stories, and I think it really reinforces to me the fact that like the community and the surrounding businesses really do want to support these programs and really invest in your players if you reach out and make that connection with them.
Definitely, definitely. And I had a little bit of some headway into it. My dad is actually an alumni of the school back way back in the 80s. And with me being Donald Watkins Jr., people when I got the job, they knew who the family was, and so that helped out a lot too.
Oh, that hey, I mean, you talk. It's a legacy though. They kind of build that
Exactly. That
community
that
and
it is a
keep
legacy.
that
That is
going. That's
exactly.
that's really really cool. Um, Coach, I wanted to ask you a couple quick things before we wrap up. What do you see as kind of next? This was year one for you and kind of getting the culture and getting the program where you specifically wanted it to be. As you kind of look at things that maybe you want to try and do or kind of build or continue or improve on, what do you kind of see as kind of your goals as it comes to culture as a coach?
Yeah, so I want to continue to do things to pull our community in.
Mm-hmm.
We attempted this year to do a adult league to bring more people just in McDonough into our building to have a league at our facilities. I'm thinking of this summer doing a car show at the school. So this is stuff that's outside of basketball, but just getting people on our campus to see what we're building and want to be a part of it. Now with the players, just continue maintaining what I've established. I know, just within one season, it can get very tiring once you get, near the end of January and into February, everybody's tired, but you have a goal that you want to achieve, so you make the sacrifice to keep going. So I just want to maintain that as a coach. I don't want to get lax. I want to always keep the same drive that I have and realize, although, we're fighting for the ultimate goal at the end of the season, this isn't just a 1 year team deal. This is a program. So just continuing the success year after year after year by continuing the baseline that has been established.
That's cool. Car shows. That sounds like you got a lot of car guys in your program. People are into that sort of thing.
It's a lot of nice old pre-70s, pre-60s cars I see driving around McDonough. I think a couple people may want to show those off.
That's cool. I mean, but like to tap into things that like they're interested in or you see around the community, like, okay, this is like something that is clearly the community is into or my players are into. So let's build something around that. Kind of shows like that like connection of like, hey, I see what's you're into or what's going on outside of the basketball court. Let's figure out a way to like bring that into the program. That's a real cool way to kind
Yeah,
of
and I'm
put those
and
two
with
things
that,
together.
having my players and the pro, I mean, we're going to be directly a part of it. My idea, my vision is to have the players be the judges of one of the categories. So then that gives another opportunity for the people to come see, okay, this is who I'm supporting. These are the players. We're face to face. It's different being a spectator at the game when you're just watching them run up and down the court versus when you get to have those interactions or understanding those personalities like we were talking about earlier that, people wouldn't otherwise get to see.
Yeah, that they're more than just basketball players, right? You can see all these
It,
other sides of them that you never knew existed.
exactly.
That's really cool. To wrap up, Coach, there's a couple of questions that I ask every guest, so I'll go ahead and start here with this first one. Uh, Thinking back on your coaching career, what is a specific moment from your coaching career that you went through that you think by sharing our listeners would be able to learn from?
Rather than a specific moment, I have a piece of advice. I would say not letting any one moment define who you are, whether it's a loss or a win. I always tell everybody I try not to get too high on my highs or too low on my lows. People that watch me while I'm coaching, they're like, Coach, we never we rarely see your emotion go up or down, and that's because I know obviously people are watching, and I want to be a leader within our community, um, and I want to be somebody my players look up to, and so just maintaining a level head and just stay in the race.
Is that something that's always been a part of your like coaching demeanor and personality? Was that something that you had to like work towards develop, or was that just like who you've always kind of been as a coach?
Um, as a coach to this point, yes. Um, or as a player too, I have been very blessed as an athlete and a coach to be a part of a lot of winning programs. I
Hmm.
don't think I have had a I don't think I've had a losing season since I was playing freshman basketball when I was 14 years old. So there may be a day that I'm tested and I will have to, follow my own standard and my own advice that I give others and that I try to show now. I know that day may come. And so just relying on my principles and my values to continue with what I've already set for myself.
Yeah, I mean, I've been through a few of those. I've been definitely through a few of those situations, but I think your players, right, that they will respond to your demeanor and how it is that you are. And if we want our players to maintain their composure and, be focused and have their head in the game, we kind of have to model that behavior for them too. And I don't think I've always been perfect at that myself, but I think I've found that when my players see that I'm like calm and I'm not, too worried and I'm, like you said, kind of level headed, I think it just helps them that much more the way that they play.
Definitely, definitely.
To wrap up, Coach, I love to give every guest kind of what I like to call this 60-second soapbox. You can go over 60 seconds. I just like to put, fun names to things, but I like to use it kind of as a platform for you to kind of get out a final thought, a closing idea, a closing message, something that you just want to leave the listeners with. You can take it, any direction that you want, basketball wise or coaching wise. I'll leave it to you since it's going to be your soapbox after all. So, Coach, I'm going to let you have the floor here again and just let you take it from here.
All right, so I'm going to kind of stick with what we've been talking about with the family culture. I honestly believe, with what I've been a part of throughout my life as it relates to basketball, a lot of coaches that I've seen, they put a lot of thought just into the basketball and the X's and O's, like we talked about earlier. And while yes, that can win you games and bring you success, I do think the ultimate success comes from building a family culture and building those relationships. I look to be a coach that not only coaches them, and then when they're seniors, they're graduating, is done. That's not me. I look to be a coach that is in my guys, able to attend their weddings, able to attend baby showers, because of the relationships that have been built, and that's what means the most. Because as a guy nearing my 30, I don't even remember much about my high school basketball playing career, and our players won't either. So the relationships are what matter. And yeah, if any young coaches are listening, focus on the relationships, and everything else will fall into place.
And that's why, and I love that you mentioned that, Coach, because that's why I love having all these conversations I do about culture. Obviously, I got plenty here in the catalog about X's and O's, but I love talking about culture and the ways that coaches really work to impact the lives of young men and women. Because, like you said, the ball's going to stop bouncing for everyone, but if we can provide a great experience for them, teach them some things, and build things and build people up outside of basketball and into more than just basketball players, I feel like that's what it's all about.
Yes, sir.
Awesome. Coach, again, really appreciate you coming on here talking about culture building and all the things that you're doing at McDonough to build that family culture. Love hearing all the ideas that you got about, those relationship buildings and the way that, you kind of have your guys, come together, and the way even you overcame some challenges when it's been tested, and a whole bunch of other stuff, the parent stuff, the community stuff. That's awesome. So, Coach, it sounds like it was a great year one. I'm really excited to continue to follow your journey and see as where year two and beyond kind of take you. So keep doing what you're doing, keep building great things, and best of luck going forward. Really appreciate it, Coach.
Thank you so much, Mike. And to everybody that's listening, make sure that you all follow the Basketball Teacher Podcast on Twitter, subscribe on YouTube. Thank you again for having me. I look forward to having another discussion maybe in 5 or 10 years from now.
Let's do it. Thank you guys so much for listening. This was another edition of the Basketball Teacher Podcast. We will see you guys next time.
Thank you for listening to another edition of the Basketball Teacher Podcast. Make sure to connect with us on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter, or reach us directly through email at basketballteacherpodcast@gmail.com. Take care, be safe, and we'll see you next time.